Hi, everyone. This is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Live and Prime Lunchtime with City Manager. Hey, Brian Johnson. How are you?
Rico, how are you?
Good, good. Good to have you on. This is going to be a great podcast. We're discussing really up-to-date things right now and clarifying a few things. So part of this agenda, today's discussion will be about the proposed roundabout at Peachtree Corners Circle and the driveways of the Forum and Creme de la Creme. We'll also be discussing a bit about the forum, what may be going on there as well, and the new playground that's being planned for a town center. We've had that discussion previously with City Councilman Alex Wright. Well, this is a few weeks later. We're going to have some more talk about that as well. So let's get right into it. I mean, things going on with traffic and such. The roundabout is a proposal that was put out. This was a request for a proposal put out last week. Um, and I'm going to put up a picture soon, but part of that picture shows a median, and obviously that's not, after our discussion previous to this, that's not really part of that feasibility study. But why don't you get into telling us a little bit about this, Brian, and tell us what that proposal really entails?
So what we're going to be talking about is the area of Peachtree Corners Circle that is at the south end of the forum and really lines up with the entrance to the forum that's nearest Trader Joe's. So to put everybody into to orient everybody to where we're talking. Currently, what's happening at that location is you essentially have, I believe, right at the entrance there at the forum where the traffic circle is, you've got, when you consider the turn lanes, you've got like 6 lanes of traffic if you consider deceleration, acceleration lanes and everything. And so right now, you've got 2 locations that dump out onto those 6 lanes of traffic. One is, of course, all the forum traffic, and the other one is Creme de la Creme, the daycare center. And this scenario, the way how many lanes there are, the left in and out on these ingress egress points all predate the city, including if you just look to the left of that exhibit, you've got the Quick Trip and all that traffic. What you have is have a development that was submitted to the city, which you can see the box there that says proposed development. That is a condo tower that's been proposed to be constructed there, with a restaurant component to it. It will be done under our mixed use development ordinance, and they're proposing to have 52 or 55, somewhere like that, units in this condo tower. And this proposed development it did force the city to really look at the traffic in this area, because you've got somebody proposing to add more traffic in a situation where you have people wanting to turn left either onto this parcel or out of this parcel. And so as we looked at it, and we realized that it's already somewhat complicated for anybody who's been in this area. So we looked at various ways to maybe add add extra traffic, and the best way to do it, and in a way that affects the current traffic the least. And what we think might be the best solution might be a traffic circle or roundabout, however you want to say it. And it's for 2 reasons. One is the proposed development. We do not and did not permit a left in or out of this development, because we do not believe that it can be done in a safe way. And so, given the scenario, the traffic patterns as they exist even right now without that development. So that's one concern that we had, is we don't want to permit left in or left out, but we want the development to be successful. So we're like, how could we get cars to be able to go left into the development and left out? And one way is to force, them onto a traffic circle. And if you get them onto the traffic circle, then technically they don't have any restricted movement, because you just have to go around the circle enough to make that turn. So one scenario we're looking at is to have this proposed condo and the daycare center to have their traffic join together and then dump out onto the traffic circle together directly across from the forum. And that will allow unrestricted access to either of them in a safe way, because technically nobody's turning left out of it. They're actually turning right and merging onto the circle. They just would go around the circle before they would exit yet again to the right. Go ahead.
So just to clarify, anyone that's watching this at this point, would be that the green part, which are within the sketch, was a median, meaning
correct.
that people could not cross over. It was a raised median. That's not really part of the plan. You're going to leave the lanes open the way they normally are without a raised median there. But obviously, the roundabout itself will have some sort of constraint to it, I would imagine, when they design it.
I would say that the green, like you said, are raised medians. So all the green to the left, as we are looking at this exhibit, would probably be in there. That would stay there, all of it to the left.
Going towards Peachtree Corners Baptist Church
That's
and
correct.
West Jones Bridge.
YMCA and going towards West Jones Bridge. So that section would stay there, just to make sure nobody ends up trying to do something that they cannot. Now, to the right, what I would say is it would exist, but only for a little ways, just enough to make sure nobody came out of the forum and tried to turn left and cross over and not get onto the circle. They need to get onto the traffic circle. Where it is, what you have is essentially a working document to put into a little bit of context what we're wanting a engineering firm to look at. But as you look at the entrance to Quick Trip right there, the raised median would not exist so far as to restrict left out of Quick Trip. Now, it is important to note that nobody in traffic engineering profession would love to see that left out of Quick Trip stay. Everybody would love to make it go away, but we are not at this point proposing to do that for reasons of people's traffic habits and getting them worked up. We'll take a look at things. If this project does go forward, we may revisit it later. I don't think anybody would tell you that it's safe to make that left out, but there's a lot of people who would be upset if we did remove their ability to do it. So we're not doing that right now. So I want to, that's an important point to make, is we're not a part of it. But all of the other green would basically stay there to ensure that people have to merge onto the circle for them to make whatever directional turn they want to make. And that is what we're wanting an engineering firm to take a hard look at, to do a traffic study on, make sure it works. Because the other reason that we're proposing to do this versus nothing or versus a traffic signal is because a traffic signal is not conducive for a flow of traffic quite as consistent as a traffic circle, meaning a signal forces traffic to come to a complete stop for periods of time, whereas a traffic circle or a roundabout generally allows a consistent flow of traffic. Yeah, you do kind of have to slow down there, versus right now, if you're not turning into the forum, you could come off of Peachtree Parkway and you could go zooming on past and not have to slow down. But we like roundabouts or traffic circles better because of that. And then the other one, maybe very important point here, for those who are like, why do you have to do anything? I would submit that if this proposed condo tower goes in, we will have allowed for a situation in which there is going to be somebody who's going to live right there where that box that says proposed development is existing. They're going to live in a condo tower. And if they want to go to the forum, or let's just specifically call out Trader Joe's, let's say they want to go to the grocery store. They're going to have two options. They're going to end up, one option is to go down to the parking deck that their car is parked in, drive out of the parking deck, get out and either cross over 6 lanes of traffic if we don't put a traffic, roundabout in, or even get onto the roundabout, go across the street, go into the forum, deal with all the traffic there, turn left into the Trader Joe's parking lot, go in there, park their car, walk in there, get whatever they're getting, bottle of wine, whatever, go back out to their car, do the whole thing in reverse. Or they're going to be like, you know what? I'm just going to walk across the street. I'm just going to time it. I'm going to play Frogger. I got this. And they're going to do it. And
you know what? Not for anything.
Yeah, despite our best efforts, people will do that.
I've seen people come out of the Quick Trip and go straight across to the driveway where Redlands is. Okay, straight across. I mean,
yes,
it's not unusual to see that, cutting all those lanes. It's just like, that's crazy to do that.
Right. People will do it in the car, or people will do it walking. They're just like, oh, I'll just time it. And so if we don't have a traffic circle or a traffic signal, what we're not doing is we're not providing a safe way for people to get across 7 lanes of traffic. And there's no safe way to do that other than to create some way. So there are two options. One is a traffic signal goes in and some pedestrian actuates the crossing, a pedestrian crossing like you see elsewhere. They push the button and they tell the traffic signal, I want to walk across.
Right.
The traffic signal cycles through and it stops traffic, and now that person walks across. Now, mind you, when that happens, the timing of it is such that we have to be able to afford anybody from Usain Bolt to run across. I mean, that's quick, all the way to Aunt Mabel, who may be on a walker.
Right.
I mean, that's how traffic.
Although Aunt Mabel shouldn't be out there on a walker, but no, I get what you're saying.
What Aunt Mabel does anyway. Doesn't matter. She shouldn't be, but she does. So she's out there, and we've got to afford a reasonable amount of time for somebody who is not particularly fast mobility when it comes to walking. And so here you are sitting in your car, and there's Aunt Mabel, who probably shouldn't be out there. Maybe she's not on a walker, but she's not moving quick. She's just moving across. Or it's somebody with a little kid or whatever, and they're going. And so you're sitting there waiting, and it's a lot longer of a signal time for you to sit there than if a car was the one that actuated it. So here the person crosses over to Trader Joe's, and then traffic goes, and they come back and they do the same thing. Or what we think might be the best way is we don't have a pedestrian that gets to stop traffic, but we do put in pedestrian crossings so that they can get to the traffic circle. That red ring right there would be a pedestrian refuge, if you will. So they would only have to cross over 1 lane of circulating traffic to be able to get over to the red circle, and then they walk around the red circle that's separated by curb from the traffic, and then they only have to cross over 1 more lane on the other side. So there's a way to do it at least safer than somebody trying to cross over 6 lanes of traffic.
Right. So, the interesting part to me is when we put this story out on the website and then shared it online, is a lot of the commentary that came back, not scientific survey or anything, but these are people on Facebook and stuff. A lot of the commentary that came back was actually positive for the most part. The sentiment was there. Certainly the sentiment was that something should be done there. Is it debatable roundabout? Most comments were, could be, who knows, maybe you lied or whatever. You bring up good arguments as far as putting a traffic light there. And I don't remember the rules exactly of how far traffic lights can be from the previous intersection. Maybe this is at the maximum of that, right? I'm not a traffic person, but
it is too close, Rico. It is too close as it relates to the standards set forth in the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. There is a Bible out there that exists for how these things happen. And a traffic light there is too close to the one at Peachtree Parkway because of the stacking that
That's
is
right.
needed for left turns off of Peachtree Parkway off of Peachtree Corner Circle onto Peachtree Parkway heading north towards Johns Creek.
Yeah.
Those stacking, the stacking of that is such that I think that there's double lanes
Right.
to turn left, and
Right.
it gets, depending on the time of day, it stacks up into what would be another signalized intersection, and it's too close. We don't have enough room to make it work. And so that's the other reason why a traffic signal is not being proposed, is because of that. And again, we think that there's not going to be a lot of pedestrians crossing. We think it
Yeah.
can be done safely the way I just talked about,
Hmm.
where they're only crossing over one lane and then they have a refuge, if you will.
Yeah.
But we put it out to bid so that an
Hmm.
engineering firm can really get into the weeds on traffic counts and all that kind of stuff, and come back and tell us if it is the best way. And if it is, then we have another step, and that is, does the city want to fund it? How soon do we want to fund it?
Right. So the city council, from what I understand from the RFQ, certain traffic studies have been done already to a degree. This is the next step of it to see feasibility then. And then there's a planning of what shape should it take, or, how it should be actually constructed. And then the city council would have to actually appropriate money
That's
for
correct.
this to be actually constructed. So the next step would be city council has to decide whether this should be go forward or not, regardless of if the feasibility study says yes, it should be done. It's up to the city council then to vote that fund into it, correct?
That's right. I mean, ultimately, I have to make a recommendation to city council, and so I'm
Hmm.
not ready to make that recommendation yet. So I pushed it
Yeah.
down, and my director of public works and engineering put this out to bid. He's going to do work through this with traffic engineers. He'll give me a
Yeah.
recommendation. I'll consider his versus maybe some other non-engineering considerations here, and I'll make a recommendation to city council. Now, if my recommendation is, I mean, city council can go in any direction they want, but if I
Hmm.
recommend to put it in, they then
Right.
have to not only, I mean, where they approve it is in the dollars. I mean,
Right.
I can say we're going to build it all day long, but if they don't
Right.
appropriate money for it, it's an unfunded project. And so they would have to look at it and say, yeah, your recommendation makes sense. We see all the data, and let's
Hmm.
appropriate money to do it. And that's so. This is certainly not a done deal. It is merely the beginning stage. But what precipitated this is, again, that proposed condo tower
Right.
project that council just the rezoning to make it mixed use that mayor and council just approved on Tuesday
Hmm.
night. That's why we're looking at this.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. I appreciate you clarifying a few things and putting that out there like that, because of the questions that are out there. But like I said, even the comments that we've gotten back on social media and on our website shows the sentiment is actually not, in favor of doing something there. I mean, I know from my personal experience, in a year's time, I could see two accidents there without an issue, and that's me driving rarely down that way as much as. I'm not a police cop, so I'm not over there. But if I see two accidents in a year, I got to believe there's more than that going on. So certainly, people are chasing each other out there, or deciding, like you said, either, you know, trying to figure out, who's going to go first. There's no right of way. It's just whoever decides to make that turn, and some people's judgments aren't as good as other people's judgments. They can't judge that space and time. So yeah. All right, cool. Good to see that the explanation of that come through. Um, Let's talk a little bit about, let me just get this off here. Let's talk a little bit about the forum at this point, because you know that's been out there. We had an article about that as well recently. Um, There is a company that's in contract at least in the due diligence phase of it. I know the city is interested in helping the best that the city can to make this a good development or improve it. Obviously, there's a lot of stores closed in there. Williams Sonoma just is closing up shop as well and moving on. And if I understand correctly, I mean, there may be a couple of other stores whose leases are up in a year's time that have a larger square footage. I'm not talking about Belk's. Um, but, could they leave? They could choose to leave or they could choose to rent a smaller space. Um, Obviously, again, it depends on what goes on. So where does the city feel that it can help here? I know we discussed it at one point. Anything new or any other ways that we can look at this? I mean, residential is one of the components that people have been bantering about. Even on next door, where I'm hearing again sentiment that that's not a bad idea. No one's saying boo to more density, more building as far as residential on the foreign property. So just to put that out there.
Well, here's the city's perspective on the forum. I mean, we look at the forum and the town center as when you combine them and obviously connect them with the pedestrian bridge, we consider that really our downtown. I mean, that's going to be our downtown. Forum predates the city. It created a destination location. The town center has done the same thing in its own right. And so when we consider when a city has a downtown, that
Hmm.
means that it kind of puts its a flag in the ground and it says, look, this is a foundational amenity of the city. This is a location and an activity that is too important for us to not do everything we can to ensure that it is healthy, because its health has a positive ripple effect outside of its core activity. Housing values are better if it's healthy, and
Hmm.
there's more activity and there's more synergy and energy around it, and I mean it just has that positive ripple effect. And so we look at that at the forum in that light. And so we have recognized for a while now that it was missing two components. And these are components that are not unique to the forum. These are components that are tried and true, call them supporting activities to a large retail center. And the reason the forum doesn't have these two things is because it kind of was built, and it's kind of the link between the old mall type of, covered,
Yeah.
climate controlled Gwinnett Place Mall model,
Hmm.
and what you would say is the Avalons or the Halcyons, which are
Right.
an externally, oriented retail core. In between those two, the forum was constructed. And the forum was groundbreaking for its time, but it missed these two components. And these two components are public space, gathering space on site, place where people can just hang out and do things that are not necessarily specific to shopping. The forum has sidewalks
Hmm.
that are maybe a little bit wider, but you can't do anything on them. It has very little space to hang out or for people to throw a frisbee or do whatever. And it's missing that, and it's also missing on-site residential. Regardless of the type, it's missing on-site residential. And why that's important is because if you live on site in some retail space, you are more inclined to shop right there out of convenience and not be as worried about price.
Hmm.
And so you'll walk out of your townhome or your apartment or your whatever if you are right there, and you will tend to go to those shops more often, even if it's not the cheapest or it's not your all-time favorite, because convenience will oftentimes rule the day. And that's important for retail space and restaurant space, because that's consistent traffic that kind of keeps things even for them. And then it's the unique stuff that's the way that they make profit. And so the forum is missing both of those, and we've recognized that. we've seen the gathering space aspect really obvious at the town center, because the town green
Yeah,
pulls people in. It
for
pulls people
sure.
to the town center that wouldn't even be going to the town center were it not for that. And they go there and they hang out. I mean, I have a 14-year-old daughter who has asked, "Can I go to the town center with my friends?"
Right. Yeah.
And it's to hang out, but they don't say the forum because there is
Hmm.
nowhere to go to the forum. So those two things we've known. Well, amongst all this stuff, the owner of the forum made a decision, a business decision, a couple months ago to offload all of the properties in their portfolio nationally
Hmm.
that did not have either of those two things that we just brought up. And the forum is one of them. So they put the forum on the market. They went through two rounds of uh, of I guess offers
Hmm.
for prospective
Right.
companies to make an offer. They had the initial offer by these companies, and then they had a what they call the second and best final offer.
Hmm.
And they have a company that they have agreed to a purchase price with. And so this company is in their due diligence phase. They have a contract on the property, and they are now finalizing their financing, which is what the due diligence is for. And
Hmm.
we have every reason to believe that here in about 2 weeks, they will have
Right.
closed on it, and we will be moving forward with the next phase. And that phase is this: the city will, in some capacity, be partnering slash facilitating
Hmm.
the addition of these two uses on the forum in some capacity.
So
That
when you say that specifically, I know at one point we discussed where the city would possibly propose owning parking decks to allow the elimination of or to allow the facilitating of putting green space, and that means you're removing parking spaces. So city proposed possibly building parking decks that would be city owned, just like the town center side. And so you're suggesting that, I think, right?
that's
You'll
correct. Be some scenario, probably, in
okay.
which the new owner will, and they're agreeable to this. I mean, we had a lot of conversations, as they were considering whether to make an offer and how much. But so I
Hmm.
do know they're interested in doing this. But the only way to put green space at the forum is to remove parking, to remove
Right.
asphalt.
Yes. Right.
And the only asphalt at the forum, it's either drive lanes, moving cars intra parcel,
Sure.
or
Right.
parking. And so we have agreed that, look, for you to do that, you're going to need some help in some capacity to relocate parking spaces elsewhere. And as you know,
Hmm.
the only way to do it is usually with structured parking. There are a
Right.
couple of ways to do it, but that's
Hmm.
what we did at the town center is we
Right.
actually own the parking deck, but there are certain spaces in the parking deck that are restricted to use by a particular tenant. Now, you would never know it as your average person driving around there because they're all there. But for instance, Cinebistro has a right to control a certain amount of spaces in the bottom floor of the parking deck.
Hmm. Hmm.
They consider it an extension of their surface parking, and we agree. So that would be there would be some scenario like that at the forum in
Hmm.
some capacity. We haven't ironed out the details, but we have
Right.
agreed that the city is going to have to be involved in some capacity, and we will. But that'll
Now,
allow there to be green space, gathering space, cool opportunities for programming and other things at the forum.
right, which is really creating that energy that the forum needs. Because, like you said, I mean, town center is where a lot of people go. It's not just the town green part; it's all the other structures, like where the tables are and the shading areas, the fireplace during the fall and winter. Um, so there's a lot of areas there, and then with this new playground we'll talk about shortly, that just provide so much more energy and thriving, presence there. And they all have to eat at some point. They all have to, they'll eventually use retail there. So the other component, and I know the purchasing company has, we named it in our, if they're the ones that end up going through, we named it in an article online recently, and they own the Avalon Mall in Alpharetta and the Atlantic Station Mall in downtown. Um, they're multi-use. Their developments are multi-use. They have apartment units. We've discussed this before, increasing density or adding density rather to the forum property. Is this also part of what they're discussing? And any idea of, I know it would have to be planned out, but any thoughts there as far as that goes?
Well, we fully expect the owners to be submitting to the city some sort of a rezoning application to either rezone the entire parcel mixed use or to subdivide off of a piece and to
Mm,
ask the city for permission to put on-site multifamily of some sort commensurate with the quality that's there on site. I don't know beyond that other than that is coming because they want on-site residential. They need it. Mixed
mhm,
use retail centers like this need it. There is a reason why the mixed use development is so successful, like the Avalons and the Halcyons, is because of all of that on-site convenient residential customer that those retail centers get. They are going to
mhm,
want to add that to the forum
right.
and in some capacity. So I can say that much, and I can say that the city is going to look at it critically, but we do recognize that it does need it. And so, we will do what we can to make sure that, if there is some quality product that goes there that fits, that's not too
Mhm,
much, that doesn't create extra problems, and that is a value add to what we consider a very important, cornerstone amenity of this city, and that is
sure.
our downtown.
Yeah, I would imagine that even if they decide to do a out parcel, like you had mentioned before, that obviously, that those things would be zoned properly and conditioned properly, actually, because that means a new developer would be coming in likely if they're not the ones doing it. That's what out parcels are, right? When you get someone else coming in to build on it. Like Lazy Dog is considered an out parcel at Town Center. Um, so I would imagine, all that will add um, to the spirit, I think, of what the forum can be. So I can't wait to see what goes on there. Um, Certainly, that's going to take some time for it to come to fruition between planning and all that. So we're not looking at something necessarily happening in a year's time, although it
Well,
could be,
Rico,
right?
actually,
Yeah.
Rico, normally you would be right. Normally, I
Okay.
mean, yes, as a former planning commissioner yourself, these things take time. But here's the thing with this one. You're talking about a company that bought something that, you mentioned a little earlier about the discussion on some of the social media platforms.
Yeah.
Those of us who live in the city are kind of talking about what's going on there and which tenant, was doing well and not, and what, vacancy, all that kind of stuff. Well, this, the new owner recognizes that, there have been some, challenges that the forum is has faced recently. Some of it is everybody's faced, COVID. Some
Right.
of it everybody has faced because of the online shopping phenomenon. But they recognize that they need to do something quick, and they recognize that they bought something that without their if they didn't do anything different,
Hmm.
would have some challenges. And so I think they have accepted the fact that, look, we bought something that may not be, that we can't turn around and all of a sudden that thing take off as this awesome investment unless we do some things. So they're prepared to really get aggressive on both
Okay.
things quick, because if you think about it,
Yeah.
their perspective here is those two missing items, once
Hmm.
they're put in, will allow them to then market these open spaces to some quality tenants, because now they can say, look, you are go, you will soon have on-site residential, that convenient,
Right.
visitor customer of yours, and we're creating places for people to hang out, for people
Right.
to do things and be in front of your store. And as a result, we have a quality location. I believe they're going to also go so far as to say, look, there are some other great, you know, retail centers like this or mixed use developments here closely. We
Hmm.
talked about Avalon. Avalon is doing very
Right.
well, but some cases so well that I know there are people here who, kind of cringe when they've got to go there because traffic and parking have become a problem there.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
they don't have a lot of green space, and so that their green space gets crowded. And so I think the new owners feel like they can steal market share back from what Avalon stole from the Forum, and that is people who are like, look, the Forum has got the same experience that you
Hmm.
can have with Avalon, but yet not as much congestion of people and cars.
Yeah. And the good part is when you think about it is that, I know there are people that joke around about the bridge, is the bridge part of that purchase, and stuff like that. That everyone has a joke about something, but but I see the synergy here. I see the idea of multi-use. I see the density being added there, green space there, a bridge going across to the town center for concerts, a movie theater that's there, that hopefully
Rico,
will,
one other
you
thing
know,
too is
yeah,
we've talked about with the new owners, they're like, we would like to coordinate programming so that whether it's the new green space at the Forum or the town green, there is
right,
something kind of being
going
organized.
on.
Some big like the concert, some small like it could be a, you know, I don't know what.
An outdoor Shakespearean play on a
Yeah,
stage
I mean,
over there.
whatever. I mean, exactly. But
Right.
there's something going on at Peachtree Corners, call it downtown.
Right.
One of the two places, and you can get back and forth safely without getting in your car. We think that there's a great synergy opportunity here as well, and we're excited
Yeah.
about the possibilities.
Yeah. And I'm more excited because I think it expands towards the other side too. Because right now, as we know, the Roberts property, the apartment complex that was going to go there, that rezoning went away now. It's
It
sunset.
reverted back to its commercial zoning. That's correct.
Correct. So, I mean, at some point, I think if things move along quickly with the development on the Forum side, I can see something else moving on the other side then much more quickly. It would make sense to me,
I don't
right?
disagree with you.
Yeah. So, cool. So let's just move on quickly to, since we're getting a little short on time here, let's move on quickly to the playground at Town Center. I have put together a little overlay of where this is going to be. In fact, let me see about bringing it across a little bigger. Okay, so using Google Earth and a blueprint that we had of the playground, it's not necessarily the most up to date one, but this shows roughly the area that it's going to take up. It seems, and a decent portion of it actually.
Yeah, I mean,
Is
so
that
what you're
correct?
saying is you're seeing the playground area, meaning
Right.
that would be kind of the area that has, improvements made as part of this project. It's not just, you know, undeveloped wooded area. Half
Right.
of that's already clear. Half of that's already just part of the town green. It was cleared when we put it in. The
Yeah.
other half, it's pushing into the wood line a little bit, but what we're doing here is we're basically locking in that final side of the town green, locking
Hmm.
it in with what we have seen is a you want to call it a magnet for activity.
Uh-huh.
And that's the playground, and we only have a few pieces of playground equipment as it is, but even those get used a lot. And so we recognize that, what, this may be something that, could really pull in even more people. So
Hmm.
we did some,
I'm
you
gonna put
know,
this out here. That's a
yes,
rendering, right? That's
it
not that not
is.
that's not necessarily the final placement of everything, if I understand correctly. But
Yeah, I think what we've ultimately done is we've flipped the two main features there. The
hmm
one on the left that has a covering is called the Qantas, and it's actually there's only a couple of them in the U.S. and at least right now, and it's a really unique piece of playground equipment. And then the one on the right is a long slide,
right.
and so I think they might be flipped. But other than that, that's generally what you're going to see is the type of stuff. And so our thought here was we went out and we found some playground equipment that you don't find anywhere around here.
hmm
It's very unique in that we also included in this playground equipment for those who may have a disability of some sort.
Right.
Disability could be they're in a wheelchair, and there's a swing that allows for that. There's also some playground equipment that help those who have disabilities like that are maybe on the autism spectrum, and
hmm
there are certain touches and feels that they like. One of the slides there are a lot of different rollers. We've been told that going down a slide like that is good for certain people that have certain disabilities, and so
Right.
it's kind of our way of saying, look, let's add a much more wider spectrum of playground equipment. Use it as a draw.
hmm
Put in some covered seating area around it so parents can come and sit and watch their kids, but yet, their kids are running around. Lock it in on the back so there will be a sidewalk on the backside with a fence, if you will, so that it's
hmm
not just like kids can't just run off into the wood line. And then you essentially, and then we're looking at maybe taking the current locations and kind of
uh
orienting them towards really small kids and having some of those like 1 and 2 year olds. And so
hmm
ultimately what we'll have in the town green is the kind of the full full space-time continuum of playground users and
Yeah.
kids who are um, you know infants,
Which
you will, just crawl,
toddlers?
go out there, all the way to, if you include the fitness trail in the wood line, now you can have people who are all the way into, some pretty, ninja course type of stuff, and all in one
Right.
location.
Right. And if I understand correctly from my previous podcast with Alex Wright, some maybe three of those 10 stations, they will be adjusted and moved and stuff. But definitely a large area, definitely even seating area for concerts, right? That will be coming this fall or this summer. Um, and I understand the city also, with as far as the concerts are going, it's going to be no reservations anymore, at least for the time being, and open to whoever wants to come. Um, so it's going to be. So this will be, if I understand correctly, the this may be in place roughly by May, if I understand correctly.
I mean, if the supply chain cooperates, weather
Right.
cooperates,
That's it.
we
Right.
are on track, and our target was to have it in by the end of May because that is the first concert.
Right.
And we want to
Yes.
have it in by then, or very close thereof. And so that is our goal. And you are right. Right now, we, at least our goal is to have concerts back to where it's just first come, first serve, and
hmm
it's an open public place. But yes, this playground area will free up a little bit more, or will create a little bit more
Right.
seating area for those who want to come out for the concert. And
hmm
so, yeah, I mean, more to
Yeah.
follow, but we're excited about it, and we're just kind of feeding that activity generating beast that is the town green. It
Yep.
brings people to the town center, and people that go there oftentimes spend money, whether it's on a beer or on a coffee or a slice of pizza or whatever. They hang out, they window shop, and that benefits everybody. So we want to
Yep.
keep feeding that beast.
Cool. I mean, just it's exciting. The 2022 is going to be a good year, I think, for things coming to the city of Peachtree Corners. God willing, the COVID. we're hopefully past that peak, and things don't change. So good
We're
stuff.
doing like this with everybody else in the world.
Yes, God knows we can't control everything in the world, but you know, at least we're hopefully in the city. And I'm also excited because of the development at the forum, what may be going on there as it goes through the rest of the year, that also may inform some more development in other parts of our city as well. There are certainly parts of the city where, that type of multi-use development can actually be more even beneficial, like on Holcomb Bridge Road, Jimmy Carter Boulevard. Um, so, all this energy, all this development just will help feed development in the rest of the city, I think. So,
I mean, our redevelopment authority is hard at work, trying to, look at opportunities to do just that elsewhere.
yeah,
And yes, I mean, the age old, saying in economic development that activity begets more activity.
yeah,
It is a truth. And if you can get something that's kind of, creating that activity, it has a ripple effect around it, and it's contagious.
yeah. It's fantastic. I appreciate your time, Brian. Everyone else, Peachtree Corners Magazine is the sponsor of these podcasts. We're working on our next issue, should be out the first week in February. And look for it because we just completed our first annual Reader's Choice Awards. 1,900 plus people participated as respondents to this survey. We had over 30 categories, I believe 32 categories, food, different things. Not a huge list of categories because it's our first time. We wanted to make sure that we didn't give anyone like a 20-minute survey to go through, but it took under 4.5 minutes. So we're excited to be showing that. Plus, check out, we have an article in there recapping the commercial development work and residential work that's going to be happening, approved, and along with the map for 2022, what's happening this year. So you should check that out. Um, Look for the magazine. Check livingin peachtreecorners.com, our website, for up-to-date information. And looking forward to our next podcast, Brian. Appreciate you coming